In this video, we're going to talk about what self-talk is in sports. Hey there, I'm Eli Strawman, a performance coach and the founder of SuccessStarterThan.com. Now, have you ever paid much attention to the way that you're thinking during games? What kind of thoughts do you have before a game? What about during a game? What about during specific moments, so crunch time moments, maybe where you're feeling a lot of pressure? And then what kind of thoughts do you have after a game? After a game if you played well, and then also after a game if you played badly. Now, we can also take this to the next level and say, what kind of thoughts do you have on a daily basis in relation to your sport? And what kind of thoughts do you have during practice? Now, the reason that it's so important to recognize your thoughts is because the thoughts that you have are going to directly impact the way that you feel. Now, the way that you feel, right? The way you're thinking and the way that you're feeling, that's going to have a huge impact on your performance. Because you know that when you are feeling nice and confident, when you're feeling relaxed, when you're calm, when you're highly motivated, that's when you perform well. That's when you go out there and you compete at a high level. You also know that whenever you're feeling really anxious, whenever you're feeling fearful, whenever you're doubting yourself, that's when you play timidly, and that's when you typically will underperform. That's why it's so important to identify the thoughts you have. Now, the thoughts you have are going to be referred to as self-talk. Self-talk involves the way that you think and how you speak to yourself. It's all about the thoughts that you have as an athlete. Now, I like to break self-talk down into two different categories because I think this really helps athletes understand it better and get a clear idea of, how this has impacted them on different levels. So we have indirect self-talk and we have direct self-talk. Indirect self-talk is going to be thoughts that you have that are not directly related to yourself, but they still impact the way that you feel. Some examples of indirect self-talk are going to be, that team looks really good. That team is huge. The field conditions are terrible today. This official is awful. Those kinds of indirect thoughts. So they're not thoughts that you're having directly relating to yourself or directly directed towards yourself, but they are thoughts that you have that are going to impact yourself. Because if you think, this other team is really good, what does that typically lead to? Well, it typically leads to you feeling a little intimidated. The same thing if you say this other team is huge and you're playing a contact sport or a sport where that size is going to really matter. You're going to feel intimidated. Just like if you say this team is really easy to beat. I've talked to a lot of athletes who the opposite would happen, right? Where you think, I shouldn't think that this team's really good, so it's okay if I think, this team's awful, it's going to be an easy win. But in reality, a lot of times athletes have that thought and then they underperform because they're not performing with as much focus because they think it's going to be an easy win. The same is true if you say the field conditions are terrible, because that can negatively impact the way that you're playing because you're not going to have as much confidence because you're focused on the field conditions. So indirect self-talk involves thoughts you have about your outside environment but are still going to impact the way that you feel and the way that you play. Now, direct self-talk involves your internal world. It's the thoughts that you have that are directly relating to yourself. A lot of times, direct self-talk is going to happen after you make a mistake. After you make a mistake, you might say, I made an awful play, I suck, I can't believe I did that. You see how these are all I can't, I am, I suck? Those are all direct self-talk, but that's going to be direct negative self-talk. We can also have direct positive self-talk that's going to be, I believe in myself, I am confident, I know I'm a great player. So direct self-talk is going to include the thoughts you have directly relating to yourself. These are going to have more of an immediate impact on the way that you feel, because after you make a mistake, if you say, I suck, I'm a terrible player, that's going to immediately lower your confidence and make you feel badly about yourself. But if you say this other team looks really good, or, I can't believe coach is starting her today, that's still going to impact you, but not as quickly as direct self-talk. So we first want to make sure that your direct self-talk is more positive and productive. And then we can turn our attention onto your indirect self-talk. Now, changing self-talk or taking control of your self-talk during practices and games, it does take a lot of effort and it does take some time. So it's important to understand why this effort is important. The reason that it's important is because of all the positive benefits that you're going to experience as an athlete when you adopt more positive and productive self-talk. Some of these are going to include increased confidence, improved focus, decreased anxiety, less fear of failure, increased motivation, stronger mental toughness, and an increased enjoyment in your sport. All of those are going to come about because of more positive and productive self-talk. Now, the opposite's also going to be true. If you're thinking negatively to yourself, you're going to have less confidence, you're going to have more anxiety, you're going to have more fear of failure, you're probably going to adopt some perfectionism, and overall your thoughts are holding you back. That's the main idea when it comes to self-talk. You want to make sure that the thoughts you have as an athlete are helping you improve, they're helping you perform your best, rather than holding you back. Now, to take control of your self-talk, you want to focus on altering your natural thought patterns. The reason you want to alter your natural thought patterns is because I don't know if there's any athlete, at least no athlete I've talked to, who genuinely wants to think negatively. Because most of us understand that if we think negatively, this isn't going to help us perform well. But what happens is you have this natural and automatic way of thinking. Whether it's helpful or not, it's there. And so what we have to do is work on altering your natural thought patterns. The more that you alter your natural thought patterns, the easier it's going to be to have more positive and productive self-talk during games. Now, I've made a video that goes into much more detail on altering your thought patterns as an athlete, so I'll link the video right here. But the basis of the idea is you want to come up with a list of all the negative thoughts you have about yourself, all the negative beliefs you have, and the negative statements that you say or you think during practices or during games. And then what you want to do is you want to come up with a more positive and productive alternative for each one. A really easy way to do this is by thinking, what do I need to think in order to build my confidence? And then also, what would I be saying to somebody else if I knew my teammate was having this kind of thought? And then once you've come up with your positive and productive alternatives, now it's time to start retraining your brain, retraining the way that you think. And that happens by rereading those statements every single day. To make the process even stronger, even more impactful, I encourage you to rewrite them every single day. By rewriting them, you are forcing yourself to really take your time with each statement, which really ingrains it into your mind. If you have any questions about what self-talk is in sports, please leave them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each day on sports psychology and mental training. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.